Following 8 years of dedication to his craft and 8 published novels, Scott has recently achieved recognition for his novel, Eyes of Blue, which was honored with Shelf Unbound's Top 100 Notable Indie Authors Award. Additionally, his short story, First Snow, marks his debut publication in the online literary magazine heathen.press. Join me as the author of the Blue series discusses his writing journey, and he will share insights into his marketing strategies and offer valuable advice on his writing and editing processes, including the tools and techniques he uses. You will also have the opportunity to listen to an excerpt from the award-winning novel Eyes of Blue, read by the author. This is the Brewing Fiction Podcast. Welcome back to another edition of the Brewing Fiction Podcast. My name is Keith, and today I welcome fiction author S.M. Sykes. He's written in a few different genres, including young adult, science fiction, and horror. Scott, it's a pleasure to meet you. What we like to do at the start is step into Author's Corner, and that is a little bit of time for you to tell us a bit about yourself before we get into the back end of your writing and your writing career. So Take it away.
I've published my first book, self-published my first book back in 22. Took me about 5 years to get that one started. Since then, I think I'm currently working on book 8. So they kind of came together pretty quickly after that first one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I work full time, so I just kind of write when I can. I'm lucky that my son's a graphic designer. So he does most of my covers for me.
Okay. So, I noticed another Sykes name on the book, and I was going to ask about that. So that's your son.
Yep.
Fabulous.
Yep. Yeah, my son does all the graphic design. My wife does most of my editing and everything. So keeps costs down, keeps everything in the family.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Well, it always gives you something to talk about at the dinner table, I bet.
Yeah. Yep. I got 2 kids, 25 and 22. My son, he's 25. He still lives with us. My daughter actually is out in Bloomington, Illinois. She works for the new Bloomington Bison ECHL hockey team.
Oh, wow.
They just started this year. So she's been getting into sports, doing the sales, wants to get into marketing, stuff like that. So go out there. It's, like I said, I'm a big hockey fan anyway. So it's really cool.
Which is good to hear. As Canadian, it's kind of our number one sport. So I was quite interested to hear that you're a hockey fan.
Yeah. Like I said, she's working her way up through. Just started there in August, so she's kind of getting accustomed to the hockey. She did baseball for a while, so but with sports, you move around.
For sure, yeah.
Navy vet. Been in Delaware most of my life, but just same old same.
Same old same. Were you ever deployed in the Navy?
No, I had to sign a 6-year contract because of my my job title. And I actually ended up blowing my knee out about 2 years in. So I got discharged for that.
Medical discharge, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Happens.
It does, unfortunately, yeah. Respect to you for giving it 2 years of your life.
Yeah. A lot of my buddies are retiring now, so that's how long I would have been in. They're all retiring now.
Right. Yeah, there you go. So what do you do for full-time work now then?
I'm a supervisor for a construction company.
Oh, okay.
So I do the warranty. So after the house is built, I go in and warranty anything that isn't quite right.
Okay. So construction is unforgiving. You must work a lot of weird hours, or are you lucky enough to have a 9 to 5?
Yeah, no, we're pretty much 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Because like I said, I just do the warranty stuff, so it's pretty set. The construction guys work a little bit more than I do. The ones that build in the house, or I have to schedule around customers. They don't want us there at dinner time or anything like that. So so it's actually the first job I've ever had that didn't work weekends.
Is that right?
Yep, it definitely structured work time definitely helps.
Right.
Because when I was working that's why it took my 5 years for the first book, because I was working 12-hour days, but I was only working 4 days a week, but it was still my hours were so messed up, it was hard to kind of get any time to sit down to write.
I imagine, yeah. So that's the reason. The main reason wasn't so much stylistic or problems writing; it was getting the time to do it. Then,
Yep, and I guess getting serious about it too. I'd go months where I wouldn't touch it, and
yeah,
I didn't really know if it was going to do anything. It was just kind of there. And
okay,
once I finished the first one and got that going, then it was like okay. And then started working on the second book, and
yeah,
there it goes from there.
okay.
No,
All righty. Well, thanks for sharing that. We'll do a small segment I like to call Fast Five. This is get to know you a little more.
okay,
Okay. And so the first one is coffee or tea.
coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah.
I'm drinking a coffee now. Would you consider yourself a plotter or a pantser?
Pantser.
Pantser.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. No plotting whatsoever. Is there at least an outline, or you just go
Yeah,
100%?
very, very broad strokes. I kind of know, obviously you got to know what the main point of the story is going to be before you start writing it.
Right.
Um, know your characters, at least the main characters,
Yeah.
and I kind of know where I want to go. And a lot of times I'll have like certain points that I want to hit, but that's how we get from point A to point B to C to D.
Whatever. It
I'll just
just
kind of,
whatever happens. Yeah.
yeah, I let the characters kind of run it, and
Yeah.
it's
I
like
like it.
it's like letting them run the asylum. It just kind of happens.
Yep. They tell the story. I know it all too well. I'm very much a pantser as well, so I know exactly what you're saying for sure. All right. When you're writing, do you like it in silence or do you like background music?
Silence.
Silence. Are
Yep.
you distracted by any music and stuff like that? Like distracted by family noise?
No, family noise usually doesn't. I actually write a lot. Actually watching the Capitals games,
Oh
and
wow.
so
Okay.
I have them in the background, like because I listen to Joe B and Locker, and I can kind of tell. I write more during the intermission periods than actually when the game's on.
Fair enough.
But I don't know. Music just doesn't. I don't know. It's not really something I like to listen to. Like for me, that's driving. I drive
Yeah, yeah.
and I listen to
Okay.
music. But when I'm writing, I like the silence. Be able to. I kind of talk to myself too. So
Yeah, talk it
yeah.
out. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I get really distracted with any background noise, so I usually disappear to the basement to do any writing whatsoever.
Yeah, I guess because I have to write in what we consider the library, but it's all one big open space. The kitchen, the dining room, the living room, and the library are all one big L.
Yeah, yeah.
And my wife has her craft room, my son has his room, and it's like there's always something going on in that area. So I've kind of
Sure.
learned how to just tune it all out.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Teach me, would you? Yeah. All right. Do you like to write plot driven or character driven stories?
Character driven.
Character? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about maybe some of your characters as we get into the interview here.
Yeah, I definitely like I like first person writing more than third. I
Okay.
have fun with doing some third person, but I like that first person really getting into that
Yeah,
head
yeah.
space.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. And lastly, paperback or ebook, which do you prefer if you're reading?
I would prefer paperback, but
Yeah.
I still do read a lot of ebook.
Yeah, I think it's hard not to this day and age.
Well, a lot of mine is so I need reading glasses, and when I'm at work, if I have a Kindle and I'm like sitting down at lunch, I can make the font on the Kindle bigger,
Right.
and I don't
Of
have to bring
course.
my glasses out.
Gotcha.
So like I can sit there and eat and pop my Kindle up, where trying to eat with a paperback and then having to have my glasses on, it's just not quite as easy. So just kind of throwing the Kindle up there is
Oh,
easy.
that's, yeah, never thought of
But
that. Yeah.
almost every ebook I read, I still have the trophy on the shelf for the paperback. So
Gotcha. Cool. Cool. I think most everybody, when I pose that question, is they prefer paperback, but I've had a few say the reason they choose ebook is they like the feature where you can just click the word and get a definition and things like that.
yeah, I wouldn't even have that on my ebooks because I have older Kindles. I have the
Okay.
Paperwhite and I have the other one, and I keep the airplane mode on unless I'm downloading a book. So they're never
Nice.
connected to anything anyway.
Yeah. Well, there you go. When you're reading, yeah, it's the best way to be is
Yeah, just
non-distracted.
completely.
So,
Yep, just
yeah.
completely distraction free.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was Fast Five. And now we're going to get right into the fun stuff. We're going to talk to you a little bit about how your journey started as a writer. So I know you said it took 5 years to start your first book, but talk a little bit about inspirations and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a different way that I got into writing. I never wanted to be a writer as a kid. I hated English lit classes in high school.
I read that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, not a fan. I'm still not a fan of grammar. That's why I've got the grammar Nazi that I married. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually got into it. I had an earworm. The first line of my story, running again with the running, always with the running, was just stuck in my head. And
Yeah.
I found over my life that if I have an image or I have a line in my head, writing it down or drawing it out or something is the only way to kind of like get it to go.
Okay. Yeah.
And the story just kind of started from there. The kids were younger and we were watching Walking Dead. We got talking about zombies and how some of the stuff they do is unrealistic, and if it's, 5 years, 10 years down the line of what they're pushing at this point, there's no way the body would still be able to move, and just
Right.
scientific type stuff of how, I
Sure.
mean, we know it's all science fiction, but you talk about the science part of it every now and then. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I came up with my characters. And the location was pretty simple. I wanted to use locations that I grew up with. So it starts
Familiarity.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, it just starts right in Lewis, Delaware at Cape and Lopin State Park and kind of goes through the state. You don't have too many books that are from Delaware. So a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a different location.
Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah, I read on your bio there that you struggled with English in high school, and I can admit that I struggled as well with any literature courses in high school. And do you find that it ever haunts you a little bit when you sit to write? Like, well, you're published now, but did you ever have doubts because of that when you first started?
Not because of that. I mean, obviously we all have doubts
Yeah.
and like I said, it took me 5 years before I decided if it was even gonna be a book, or it was like, I think it was once I broke like 100 pages, I was like, wow, this is actually like a full blown story.
Right. Yeah.
But no, the troubles I had with English never really bothered me because I think
Okay.
the reason I struggled is because in high school they try to put you in a box.
Right.
This teacher, like they try to say, oh, express yourself, but express yourself within
This
these
way.
limits. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Gotcha.
trying to be traditionally published, like, oh, you want to write a dystopian? Well, it needs to be like Hunger Games or we're not going to publish you, you know?
Yeah.
So, which is why I think self-publishing is so great. And there's the fact that there's so many ways to do it now kind of takes you out of that box and lets people express themselves the way they want. And that's
Sure
kind of the
does.
way I feel about teachers. Like they they have a mindset of what they're looking for, and if you don't kind of fit into that, then it doesn't usually bode well.
Fair. All right. I was going to ask that question a little further down the line here, but let's just talk a little bit about that. So, you are self published then, obviously.
Yeah.
Any advice you'd give listeners here who are right on the cusp of maybe taking that on? Any advice that you can give us about self publishing?
Research. Do your
Mm-hmm.
research with whoever you're gonna publish
Like the
through.
platform. Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
platform you're going to publish through. Obviously, the easiest one to get to and that everybody has access to is Amazon KDP.
Right.
I think if you're going to be in any market, you've got to be on Amazon, at least with an ebook,
Right.
just because it's just where everybody goes. Everybody's got that, and like Barnes and Noble is okay. The thing about that's nice about Barnes and Noble and even like Walmart, Target, if you find a distributor like Ingram Spark
Yeah.
and publish with them, they go to all those markets. So I
Right.
only publish with Amazon KDP and Ingram Spark, which is they're both free to put them up on there.
Okay.
And then so you just load everything. They're a little different how you have to load things and do things. So you got to learn those. But then Ingram Spark, you can go on Target and find my book. You can go on Walmart. You can go to Thrift Books. Anywhere that the Ingram distributes can get my
Wow.
book.
Okay.
So
Cool. So, but you still do use Amazon KDP as well, even though
yes,
Ingram
yep.
is kind of
Amazon's
everywhere.
my biggest one I focus on,
Okay.
but You have to kind of, they're not a distributor, they're just a direct to print, and the
Right, right,
distributors
right.
are too,
Yeah,
but the distributor puts it out to a lot more, like, and if you go to a bookstore, like I've got a couple bookstores that carry Eyes of Blue, my first book,
yeah.
and they won't buy from Amazon because that's their direct competition.
Fair. Yeah, of
And if
course.
they buy through Ingram, they get a 55% or 45% discount. So they only pay half for the book, so they still make money. If they buy it from
Okay.
Amazon, they got to charge more because they pay full price.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
you got to kind of diversify how you're putting it out there if you want to get it out there in more than just one way.
Cool. And Ingram Spark, that is that worldwide?
Oh, that's
Would
worldwide.
would you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah,
I
it's
may have to
worldwide.
look into that. Yeah.
I've sold books in Australia and England and a couple others.
Nice. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So it's worldwide.
Okay. That's good to know. Is there one that you would say performs better for you? It really doesn't matter. You sell one is still a good thing, right?
Yeah. Well, so I make you make more royalties from Amazon because obviously whoever buys your book has to buy it full price.
Fair.
Where,
Okay.
like I said, they only pay half when they buy it from Ingram. So
Yeah. Yeah.
the royalties look similar in the percentages, but Ingram, they're selling the book at half price, so obviously your royalties are lower.
Yeah.
Um, but I actually, November was the first month since February that I didn't sell on Ingram Spark on Ingram, and my Amazon's hit or miss depending on my marketing.
Fair.
And so
Okay.
Amazon is very market dependent. Like you have to be marketing your book hard for Amazon for it to really kind of
Hmm.
be anywhere where people can find it.
Right. Right. Okay.
Um, but like Ingram, I put all my links through bookstore.org. And so people were buying through there,
Yeah.
and you can link it to a local bookstore. So anybody that buys your book, they actually get a percentage from that
Okay.
too. So it's nice you can hook up people, but I kind of got away from that because the royalties were so low. I wasn't making anything.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's tough, right? There is very, very little to be made from one copy, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I
takes
think
it
on
takes a lot.
average, I make less than even from Amazon. I make less than $2 a book when it's all said and done.
Yeah. Right. It's peanuts.
Yeah. Yep.
So you talked a little bit about marketing. Would you mind stepping me through a little bit of what you do for marketing?
For the most part, I just stay on social media. I don't really do much other marketing. I had been hooked up with a guy that was helping me. I think a guy that hooked us up, Rick Light.
Rick, yeah.
Yeah, and he tried to do some traditional marketing through Amazon, stuff like that. Really, just wasn't getting there. And I know part of it is, my book is a small niche. It's not the big market. Like if it had been a romance book, it'd have been easier to market, and
Fair.
every niche is a little harder. So I just do
Yeah.
mine through all the social medias. I stay up on TikTok mostly, but Facebook, Instagram. I don't really do too much with Twitter or X or whatever they want to call it nowadays. But then I do stuff like this, and I kind of stay in with a couple other like Readsy. So I put my stories out through there, connect with the writers, because every
Okay.
writer's a reader,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah.
doing short stories and things like that, peer review stuff through like Writing Battle. Um, so one, it helps your writing, but it also gets your name out there into the writer group.
Community,
And
right? Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
and then the more
Nice.
you connect with them, the more you can connect with their audiences, and that opens up your audience. So that's kind of a little more of a
Okay.
grassroots, I guess, way to go about it.
Cool. I like that. You know what? It's for,
Yep, and I do a lot of like cons and book fairs and festivals and stuff too.
do you?
So
Okay.
yep,
So you like
so
get a table and do signings and stuff, you mean?
yep, get a table,
Okay.
do signings,
Yeah.
connect with other authors and the people, like get my book in front of them and saying, hey, look, my book is here, and explain it. And
Yeah.
I get a lot of sales through that, and then they buy the second book or third book. So
Okay.
got to connect with people directly.
Yeah. So where you live in Delaware, do you have like are you near a large population?
Yeah, I'm actually 2 hours from Philly, 2 hours from Baltimore, and 2 hours from Washington D.C. So and then like 2 hours from Virginia Beach, which is only like an hour from Norfolk. So I'm really kind of surrounded by a lot of major metropolitan areas.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay, that works well for you then.
Yeah, we have a big influx of people that come here during the summer. It's very tourist driven. So even a lot of like I said, I was in Ocean City. It's a half hour from me today. There's a big Comic Con that goes on there. I didn't get in there this year to sell, but I'll try
Oh,
again next
okay.
year. I'll try again next year.
Book signings are still good, right? Do you do
Yep.
libraries and that kind of stuff?
I've done a couple of local bookstores,
Yeah.
but not too much. I to me it feels weird being the only one sitting there doing a signing. I like being in a festival or something like that where there's a bunch of people and not just sitting there just by myself. Yes, little too much attention on myself.
Yeah, I think I might struggle with that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about Loss of Blue, which was published, I think,
Mhm.
June of this
June of
year.
this
Yeah.
year. Yep.
But as I was looking before we connected, I noticed another one that you just published in October. So that's a 13 short stories. Is that right?
Yes.
Uh, a thrilling year in short,
Yep.
13
Yeah, it's
stories.
it's 13, 13 horror stories. Goes along with the calendar year with an extra at the end. Um, so January has a story about like New Year's Eve and New Year's, and then February's got a story, and they don't always go along with the holiday of that month, but some of them
Right.
do. Like the
Okay.
one in the summer was more of a like a summer camp type story,
Gotcha.
stuff like that.
Great way to run a theme. Yeah, I like that
Yeah.
theme. Yeah.
Um, I actually ended up having to pull that one off of publishing for now.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so it's a good reason though. So last year, Heathen magazine was getting started. It's a horror magazine that's just getting started. Um,
Okay.
and they had accepted one of my stories, but then they went on like a 1 year hiatus with family stuff going on and wasn't able to print. Well,
Okay.
they just printed.
Ah,
And so since I had just released Thrilling Year, I went ahead and pulled it back because it had that story in it.
fair. Okay. And that was part of the agreement, right? It was
Yep. Yeah, they have a 1 year where they have rights to that story. And
okay.
instead of like changing it and pulling it out or anything like that, I was like, I'll just take it off sale for a year, let
Sure.
that story kind of do what it can.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's in the magazine right now. So
Okay. And that was good of you too. They were fairly new. They're starting out and they took a chance on your story, so why not give them the year to use it, right?
yep, yep. And then so next year I'm going to drop another one. It's going to be Thrilling Year in short, but it's going to be zodiac signs. So it'll be 12 stories based on the zodiac signs instead of the
Okay.
months of the year. So yeah, I like writing short stories, so it's kind of fun to.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I short fiction for me, I just find it may be a little bit of a weakness of mine in that I need to start and finish as quick as I can. And writing a novel is hard to do that, obviously,
Yeah.
you would know. So I like starting it and finishing it within weeks versus months or years. So,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, I like short fiction.
That's why I have the short stories. I do them. Of course, I do the contests, and I keep those short stories, and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and reuse them another time. And then my novellas, the three novellas that I have, I wrote them because I needed a break from my main novels.
Gotcha.
Like I get in and I'll get halfway, three quarters of the way through, and then I'm like, okay, I need a break, and I'll
Need a
I'll write
break. Yeah.
something completely off of it, and then I can go back and finish the novel. Or I'll finish the first draft and then I'll sit down and I'll write something else before I go back and edit.
Right. To get it from in front of your eyes because
Yep.
you're blind to what you've written.
Yep. Yeah. If you just keep reading it, reading it, reading it, reading it, you're either gonna change it constantly or you're never gonna change anything, because you don't see it.
If you're like me, you're probably going to have a totally different story after. Because every time I read mine, it's like, oh, I want to say it this way. And all of a sudden, it's something later in the story is affected by what you've changed.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So I'll usually stop and I'll go at it with fresh eyes after writing something else, and that's why I like that's why my novellas come out right around the same time as my other stories because I usually write them in the middle of doing my novels, so I can kind of take that break.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, and I know this leads to another question that I was going to ask you. On Goodreads, you had this question answer segment on there, which is pretty
Mhm.
cool. Is that something Goodreads does with all their authors, or is that
Yep.
something you chose to do?
Yeah, it's on there. I mean, it's an option for everybody
Okay,
that signs up. Yeah,
cool.
it all depends on how you want to do it.
How
But
you want to do it. Okay. Yeah, I was reading on there about writer's block, but you mentioned that you don't really feel that you've had writer's block. And I think the reason is because of the technique that you use. If you're in the middle of your story and it's just not coming to you, you slide on over to something different.
yeah, instead of trying to force it and kind of, or sometimes it's not even like I don't know where I want to go next. It's how do I want to write that? Or, I usually know where it's going, but not kind of how to put it down.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's two ways to get through that. One is just write it and go back and fix it later. And then the
Yeah,
other is take a break from it and let your subconscious work through it a little bit. And I do both. There's times
yeah,
where it's just like I'm just going to write this chapter and just get through it. I don't do the. I know some people say they'll put like, oh, write fight scene here later, or placeholder name. I can't do that. My story has to go through, because then, like you said, if you write something in that fight scene later, then you're like, oh well, he can't get hurt here because later
yeah,
on, so then you got to really be careful what you add in. So I'd rather at least get the basics down
yeah.
and then go back and fill out the details or cut out details later.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Great advice. So you must have a fair amount of unpublished and unfinished work in
Oh yeah.
progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of things that just didn't pan out. You get about halfway through the story, and I'm like, not sure where to go from here. Okay,
Oh, is
that
that
one
right?
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one's probably buried forever.
Yeah, and I got a couple of those that like really cool like start out ideas,
Yeah.
and then I get into it and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not sure where to go from here.
Characters aren't helping at all. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
no, there's a
Yeah.
couple that they're mostly my short stories, or even like ones that might have been like a novella, because
There.
I
Okay.
don't start writing anything that's going to be a novel until I've ruminated on it for a while.
Okay.
Besides my sequels, like with Eyes of Blue, Dim Blue, Loss of Blue, and then this year coming up, I'll have Faded Blue coming out, the last book in that series.
Okay.
Those just kind of feed right into each other, and I know the whole overreaching arc that I want to complete.
Yeah.
But it's when I'm starting something new, like I've got a couple books that I want to get into after that, and I'll sit on them for at least 6 months before I ever write a word, just to see if it plays out right in my head.
Just to let it brew. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
The ones that the ones that are sitting there unfinished were like, oh, this sounds like a cool idea, and I'll start writing, and then it's like I have no idea where to go with this.
Yeah. Yeah. Something pops in your mind. Like I use Samsung Notes on my phone,
Hmm.
and like I could be driving along and see something on the side of the road, or something just pop in my mind because a snowflake blew by. I don't know.
Yep.
It just comes to you. So I'll put it in my notes, and I review my notes, fairly regularly. Oh, this is a great idea. Maybe I'll put it in a story down the road. Maybe it'll just sit there forever, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got plenty of
Inspiration.
plenty of ones that have not come out of the notes yet. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because inspiration comes from anywhere. Yeah, it'd be fun to sit down if you're like me. Okay, I've got an idea. Start writing. Well, that's silly because I'm going to have 1,000 stories started and never finished if you do that.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll sit there with those notes, and I'll sit down, I'll review them, and then I'll add something to them, and I'll add
Yeah.
something to them. And so I get like I guess it's kind of an outline, but it's all kind of just coming to me. And then when I actually decide to write that story, then I have a little bit more to go on than
Fair.
just a basic idea.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, how many hours do you find? And I know what your answer is probably going to be. It varies, but do you have average amount of time that you spend writing each week?
Depends on the time of year. I don't write anywhere near as much in the summer.
Right.
Um,
So many
I
more things to do, right? Yeah.
Well, that, and I
Yeah.
like writing at night. When the sun's up, I don't write well.
Okay.
So in the summer, the sun's up till 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then
Right.
by that time I'm winding down. I also can't write like up to an hour before bed. If I'm writing like right before I go to bed, I don't sleep because my brain's
Right.
still just firing.
Yeah, you're still
So
writing.
yep. So if I'm writing after like 9:30, 10 o'clock, I got to stop. So the summer kind of limits that writing time.
Okay.
But then this time of year, I mean, I probably write 20 hours a week. I'll sit down and write for 2 or 3 hours at a time because it's like my wife works retail, so she'll be closing. So she's not home. It's just me and the dog, and
Yeah, yeah.
I'll turn on a hockey game or something and just kind of have it in the background and just sit there and write. Or I do more of the the short story competitions like Readsy and stuff like that this time of year. And of
Gotcha.
course,
Okay.
Writing Battle only has their 2,000 word one in the fall. So I always get in with that. And then, of course, you're reading and reviewing other people's stories. So I
Sure.
definitely put a lot more time into it between September and April.
Okay.
So I'm finishing up editing the one that my novel right now. It's a horror story, and then in January I'll get back. I didn't start. I already started it, but I'll get back into writing Faded Blue, the last
Yeah,
one,
the last one.
and
Yeah, yeah.
yep, and I'll probably have it done by April. And then, of course, then I got to edit and do everything like that for it to come
Yeah,
out in
yeah.
June.
Okay.
You know,
What's the title? Do you have a working title for the other novel? Not your Faded Blue, but the other
yeah,
one?
it's called Bloodstained Bricks.
Bloodstained Bricks. Okay.
It is a twist on the Wizard of Oz.
Ah, okay.
Kind of got started of where did the red bricks go in the Wizard of Oz? You have the yellow brick road, and where did the red ones go?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it kind of turned it on its head. And it's a horror story. So instead of all the scarecrow and the Tin Man and the lion, you've got a Frankenstein, a Dracula, and a werewolf, and they're hunting her. And it's not Dorothy; her name's Dolly. It's a whole different
Yeah.
kind of scenario. It's before the wizard, before Glinda, before all of that, and
Okay.
they're hunting her down instead of trying to help her.
Total twist.
Playing off the old horror, the
Yeah, yeah.
Frankensteins and the werewolves and the Draculas of the world.
Is that kind of your favorite genre to be in, or not really?
It actually seems to be becoming one of my favorite to write. I
Yeah.
really started out with the sci-fi. Um, Never really thought I would like be able to write horror, and then I was like, and I guess I was kind of defining horror too minutely when I was thinking that,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because my stories aren't. They're definitely not like splatterpunk or anything like that. They're not overly gory. They're more thrilling, in your head, like kind of mess with you type of things.
Yeah, it's interesting because genre labeling is tough. I know anytime I talk to people, well, what genre do you write in? I dislike saying horror, yet I feel I'm a horror writer, but I would say suspense horror maybe, or, like it's very hard to, like you talked about being in a box. I don't want to be in that box because sometimes it's it's not scary as in blood and gore and monsters, but it's scary at what's going on in someone's mind. That's
Some
that's
of my
that's yeah.
some of my scariest stories that people have said to me are ones that have no killing in them whatsoever. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
right.
mean? It's just
Yeah,
the whole thing is just suspense the whole time, and you just don't know
absolutely.
what's going to happen next.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yep.
yeah, you're streaming into that. You're enjoying writing that right now. So
Yep. That's what the thrilling year and short books will be. That's what this one is. A lot of my short stories kind of started coming that way.
okay.
Um, but I still like the sci-fi. I write some fantasy here and there.
Yeah.
I struggle with that a little bit because I don't like big magic. Like, I like reading books, fantasy books that have big magic, but I don't like writing big magic because, like I even said with my sci-fi, I like being a little more to the real world.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Well, you said you can get lost in the science of things, right? So it's
Mhm.
hard to write if you're restricting yourself.
Yep.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so you've certainly touched on a number of different genres there that you've written in already. So yeah,
Yep. They've kind of forced me in a couple of these short stories to write mysteries too, or closed room mysteries or stuff like that. So I've got a couple of those out there too. Those are
okay.
tough. Mysteries are tough.
Are they? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's something I've never dabbled in at all.
I probably wouldn't have if it hadn't been for the contest.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so you talked about Readsy, which I've just recently discovered, as a matter of fact. So I started writing a couple years ago, and I was like, I need all these tools and all these gadgets to help me write. Silly me, but that's what I thought at the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I started using a program called Campfire, which is, I like it. It's basically a collection of databases, and you can sort your characters and your arc, your settings, everything you can put all within, and it's just a click away. So, and I'm a
Mhm.
very visual writer. Like, I like to look at my character's face when I'm writing about him or her.
Okay.
I have to have a face in my mind, a person.
Okay.
Uh, so Campfire helps me with that. But I just discovered Readsy, and it's free to use, and they have
Mhm.
a very similar format. So, do you use Readsy to write, or do you just use it for your contests and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I just use it for my contests. I have a Microsoft Word program that I use, and I
Yeah,
just write
yeah.
in that. I just write in that.
Okay, okay.
It's a little harder to format sometimes when I get ready to go to publish, but I
Yeah.
think when I go to publish this time, I'm going to try that new Atticus. I don't know how new it is. It's new to me. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of it
but
before. I've never
yeah,
used it.
when I was in Williamsburg last year at the AuthorCon, a guy recommended it to me about for formatting everything and doing all that. So this is the first one that I'll
Okay,
actually have to format that wasn't already set up before. So
fair enough.
I'll just
Okay,
try it this time, see if I like it or not.
okay. Does Readsy not do that for you if you were to play around with it?
It might.
Since you're familiar with it, yeah. Since you're
Yeah.
familiar with it, and it's free. Atticus,
Yeah.
I think you'd have to pay, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
might try it. I'm going to play with a couple different things. This one
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't really kind of have a deadline to publish. It's kind of my own thing. So I mean,
yeah, yeah.
all mine are deadlines for myself because they're all self-published. But like Faded Blue, I want to get it out in June because all that'll be all four stories will come out one a year in June.
Same time. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of
So I
writers like
kind of
to
like
do that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So with Bloodstained Bricks, I have a little bit of time to kind of play around with how I want to publish it and what I want to do with it. So
cool.
no real.
I love the sound of how that story is going to go. I like that.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's written now. Now, or
Yep.
almost?
Yeah.
It's
No, it's
written.
written.
Okay.
I'm going through my third edit right now.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Do you
I
have
always go
anybody
through
read it for you before you edit? Besides your wife?
not for a little while. So I do my first draft, then my
Yeah.
second draft I go through and just reread
Okay.
because now I know where the story's going and what the characters are, and then so I'll change some things here or there, but make everything kind of flow a little better.
Yeah.
And then I put everything through a AI speech app,
Okay.
so
So you
it
can
reads
listen
it
to
to
it.
me. Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll just listen to it in the car or I'll listen to it, and I try not to read along with it when it's doing it so I can just hear it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I catch so many more like repetitive words or wrong words or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll usually just take a screenshot of it and then I'll go back and I'll edit all of it later. So
Okay.
I'm going through that right now, and then I'll have my wife go through it, and then usually I'll have like my son or a couple of my friends read
Friends.
through it to give me some developmental editing go on with it.
Yeah. Cool. What program do you use to have it read to you?
Speechify.
Speechify. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's free. They have really good AI voices if you pay for it, but the AI voices aren't bad. And I kind of like the AI voice because it almost accentuates the errors more.
Yeah. Take the emotion out of it, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to hear it for like it is on paper
Yep.
versus emotion
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speechify. Cool. I'm going to steal that too and take a listen.
Yeah. No, I like Speechify because, like, Eyes of Blue and Loss of Blue is from a female perspective. So when I
Yeah.
would do that one, I'll put a female voice on there, and then if it's
Yeah.
from a male perspective, I'll put a male voice on there.
Awesome.
Um, so it kind of gives me, it still kind of puts me into that mindset when it's being read. So you
Yeah.
can pick from some different voices and stuff.
Cool. Yeah. I'm going to look into that. It sounds like something that would serve me well. I think it would serve all of us well. So
Yeah, and
cool.
that's one thing I do tell anybody when they ask about, especially like editing or whatever. I'm like, you have to listen to it. Like, you
Yeah.
either read it out loud, it's better to have somebody read it to
Someone read
you.
it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know what it's supposed to say, so your
Yeah.
brain doesn't always see what's actually there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You're reading more of what you're thinking than what you're seeing on the page sometimes, or your brain is processing it that way anyway.
Well, it's like,
Yeah,
when you read like things, be like, oh, what's wrong with this sentence? And it's like they had you written twice, but your brain doesn't pick up on it.
right.
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
the
Yeah,
same thing with your typos and your stories, and especially if
yeah.
you use a word a lot, you'll use it a lot in your writing. It doesn't sound weird to you until you have somebody else read it to you, and you're like, okay, I use that word like 30 times.
That's great advice, man. Thank you. What would you say success looked like for you? Let's say when you started, when you
Mhm.
wrote your first one or published your first one, because you were writing for quite some time. What do you think success looked like then, and has it changed to what it looks like now?
I don't really think my reasons have changed. It's just putting it out there for that one or two people even that just that story does something for them. Like,
Yeah,
it's just kind of that doing something for somebody else type of. I mean, it helps for me. It's my therapy and whatever else, however you want
yeah,
to put it.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
I was at one good example that I have. I was at Zombie Fest in Milton back in October, and their internet there is horrible. Like, I couldn't get on Square, I couldn't do Venmo, couldn't, like, so trying to take payments was absolutely ridiculous. And
Okay,
most
yeah,
people don't carry cash anymore. So this
that's
one
true.
girl, teenage girl, came up and she wanted Eyes of Blue, and her mom's nothing was working, and she's like, "Oh, well, I'll take your card and I'll go look." And she kind of walked away and walked over to the next booth, and I was just kind of sitting there, and I was like, you know what? I got up and I walked over and I handed it to her. I said, "Look, I'll make a deal with you. When you read it, you give me a review." And I like gave her the book because it's like $3 to me. It's not, it's nothing.
Right, yeah, yeah, that's true.
But she grabbed the book and she did like a little spin, and she was just happy to get it, to have it, and
Yeah,
that's what success is to me. That somebody's just happy to read my book, just kind of. People ask all the time, "Oh, what happened? What would you do if you became a full time author?" I don't want to, because then it's work.
yeah, yeah,
Then it's work, and it's not. Then you have deadlines, and you have other people telling you, what to do with your story, and kind of like I said with the traditional publishing, like, "Oh no, the story's got to go this way or that way," and I,
yeah,
I'm just. I mean, granted, I would like to. If in retirement I could kind of live off the royalties of the books that I write, just a mediocre,
yeah,
living
yeah,
on top of the stuff, that'd be
yeah.
fine,
Of
but
course,
still
who
do it
wouldn't
kind of
want
like a
that?
retired, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're not going to be, you're not going to live on it only. But who doesn't want some success for sure? But I think everybody has, like you just said, seeing somebody want your book and get excited about having your book.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful,
Yep.
pretty
Yeah. And I
motivating, I
think,
would think.
yeah. And I think that's kind of why I play with the different genres, because then I'm not in that same niche all the time. Like, I opened
Yeah,
up to other people and, my stories and stuff. So, and
cool.
I was really excited when, Heathen accepted my story, and now that it's in print, so
It's pretty exciting. Is that your
yeah, it is.
first one that was accepted?
Yep. And that's the first one in print that I haven't printed.
That is awesome. Yeah, yeah. I'm still waiting for that. Yeah, it must be a great feeling. So that is what's the name of the magazine again? We'll look
It's
for it.
Heathen.
Heathen. Yeah.
Yep, heathen.press, I think, is their website.
Okay.
It's their first magazine they put out. There's 5 short stories in it, and they added some artwork to it, and the artwork they added in my story is really cool.
Nice.
And then it's digital, online only, and then actually this Wednesday they're going to start releasing one story every 2 weeks on their website to. You just go on and read, and my story will be up on Wednesday to read the whole
Nice.
story. Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Well, listeners, let's check that out. Heathen.press, I think you said. So, what's the name of that story? Your story?
Uh, the first snow.
First Snow. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. We'll take a look. All right, man. Feel like reading a short excerpt here?
All right. So this is from Eyes of Blue. It's a couple chapters in, so it kind of jumps into the story. But I've always kind of liked how this chapter starts. So I'm just gonna jump into that.
Okay.
All right. The chapter is called Sleep. Real sleep this time. I could rest knowing that Andromeda and I were safe for the moment. The doors were locked from the inside, and there was no other way in. The debtors couldn't see or hear me while I was in here. I could relax and take the time that I needed to think through this new course of action. Once I woke up with a clear head, I could make better plans for the days to follow. I had to get to sleep first. I had a little bed area set up, no real mattress, just a bunch of scrounged blankets and my sleeping bag on top. It gave me more comfort than sleeping on the concrete floor. As I lay there looking at a candle flickering in the moving air, I looked up at the graffiti art painted on the walls and the ceiling in the times gone by. Some were just tags to let people know that they were here or to deface others' property. There was some real art painted too. You could tell when the world started to end, people tagged notes about safe areas, about lost loved ones, and where they were heading if they made it out of here. I had read most of them in my time here. No TV or Snapchat to keep me entertained. But knowing it was my last night here, I wanted to let it all in, to let it wash over me. That bunker had been so much over the years. Would it see anything more? Or when I shut the doors the following day, would they never open again? Was the world that lost? I started to drift off, listening to the regular breathing of Andromeda and an occasional snore at the foot of my makeshift bed. Thinking about things I tried not to think about all day, every day. I thought about the days I was always warm, safe, and happy. Sometimes it seemed like I was remembering someone else's life and not something just a couple of years ago. I had a big day ahead, making plans and figuring out where we would go and how to get the supplies to get there. It's kind of funny that when you're a kid, you take the love and safety you get for granted. I had a lot of each, so much that I was surprised I could transition to this life as easy as I have. But then maybe having all that love and safety has stayed with me. It gave me something to hope for, to fight for. Not everyone was as lucky as me, but I didn't see it then. Like any kid, I hated that my parents were overly involved in my life. I wanted my privacy and to be left alone most of the time. Now I was on my own, I had nothing but privacy, and I hated it. I'd love to hear my brother's voice, see my mom's loving face, and have my dad yelling at me for something I did wrong. It would all let me know everything was all right and normal in the world.
Eyes of Blue.
Eyes of Blue. Yep.
Right. Great.
Now the award-winning Eyes of Blue actually just
Oh,
got
do
a
tell. Yeah.
yep. So Shelf Unbound just came out with their winter edition, and it's all indie authors and awards, and it was top 100 notable indie author
That a
in
boy.
their new book. Yeah.
Congrats, man. Congrats. So how did that come about? Is that just randomly picked? Do you apply? Does somebody
You
nominate
apply.
you? You apply? Okay.
Yep. Yep. You apply. You put it in. And there's thousands
Yeah,
of
I
people
bet.
that put into it. They have a pretty big following. I think they said over 175,000 subscribers, let alone people that can just order it or go on.
Wow.
And like I think they said it was like 60 countries or something. So
Wow. Congrats, man.
yeah,
That's huge.
yeah, that came out. It's actually funny because it came out just a week after first snow on the Heathen popped. So I've had a lot going on the last couple weeks.
What a great time to have a chat with Scott, I think.
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
So,
Does that motivate you now? Like, does that give you just a little bit more of a push to say, yeah, you know what, I want to get into the next story, the next
um,
novel?
not really with that, but it does like help me get back into pushing my marketing.
Okay.
Because with the TikTok and all of that stuff and doing all that, sometimes it's just draining. Like, and then
Yeah.
you look at it and you're like, is this really doing anything? Like, you
Dude,
know,
I know exactly what you're saying. I struggle so much with social media because it feels like it's the same thing over and over and over. And yeah, is it doing anything?
yep. So, it really helps me kind of one, it gives me something to put out there,
Yeah.
something different. Like I had to make a note yesterday. I was telling my wife that I've got like so many things that I need to talk about that I actually like had to make a list now. Usually I'm just making stupid memes.
Right.
But I got the magazine, I've got the award. Um, Eyes of Blue is in a scavenger hunt coming up for Written Apocalypse. And then I've got Dim Blue in another for Book Funnel. They're doing First Days of the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
So Dim Blues in that, and they all have like 22 books that show like this is what happens the first days of following the apocalypse.
Yeah.
So So a lot of stuff kind of going on right now. So
Yeah.
it's
Isn't it interesting how it just happens? Because you've been doing it for what? How long now?
been published for 2.5 years. So
Yeah.
I've been writing for almost eight.
Yeah. Yeah. Eight
Yep.
years, and all of a sudden you get three or four things all at once.
Yep. Yeah. And it last year in March, or this year early in March, like my like following kind of jumped up. Like I was at like 100 followers, and then like one weekend I went from like 100 to 1,000.
Oh
I don't
wow.
know how that happened. But then I just
Where's
found
that?
TikTok.
On TikTok? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And then my other ones have slowly grown, but they didn't have the growth like day over day with that. And then everything kind of calmed down. And of course, the summer you get busy and what. And then
Yeah.
so it's just, it kind of shows that so the book's good. The people that read the book like the book. I just have to get the book in front of more
Get
people.
in
So,
the hands, yeah.
yep.
And that's
So it just
but
kind of
that's
gives
the
me that.
challenge. Yeah, that's the
Mhm.
challenge of especially indie authors.
Well, even traditional authors nowadays, if you're traditionally published, you still have to do most of your own marketing.
Yes, somebody else mentioned that to me as well. And they were like, why would you go traditional anymore when you still have to do most of the work anyway?
The biggest, I think, the only well, we've talked about the downfalls of traditional, but I think the only positive of it is they pay for the editing. They usually pay for a cover, and they give you money up front. But to that, you lose some of your creative rights. You lose the rights to the story for so long, and they kind of tell you where the story can go. You know,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's
Again,
gives and takes on both of them.
of course.
I'm one of those that I might try the traditional path later, but I like doing my own thing.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Yep.
Cool, man. All right. What does 2025 have in store for you? How do you see the year playing out for you?
I'm right now. I've got two big cons coming up. I got one in January, Mars Con in Virginia Beach. It's a 3-day event.
Okay.
Then I got into AuthorCon, which is Scares for the Care. It's all horror authors, and all the proceeds go to like kids with cancer and stuff like that.
Wow.
Really big 3-day event in Williamsburg. So I'm part of both of those.
Okay.
Um, of course, Bloodstained Bricks will come out probably early in the year, kind of push that.
Yeah.
June, I'm really hoping to have Faded Blue out and finish
Right.
the
Finish that series. Yeah.
finish at least that line of the series. There's some other thoughts because in Dim Blue, he's in the military for a little while, or
Okay.
the pseudo military. Of course, it's after the world fell, so it's not like run by the government or anything. But
Fair. Yeah.
so there's I've got a couple short stories that I've written from the military perspective. So there might be some offshoots of the blues, different stories, stuff like that.
Okay.
But really gonna after Faded comes out, um, get in. I really want to get into more cons this year. I'm not gonna do like one a month, but I'm gonna try to get into a few more.
Okay.
I did a lot of festivals and stuff this year, and I think I've kind of learned ones to do and ones not to do.
Okay.
So kind of play with that a little bit.
Have you done a lot of traveling for those, or again, keep it fairly local? You have a lot local.
I've traveled. The farthest one I've traveled for is about 3 hours. But I
Okay.
travel at least. Well, besides the ones right that are local that are smaller,
Yeah.
I have to travel at least 2 hours to go to any of them.
Any of the big ones, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll travel up to about 4 hours. Anything more than that, unless it's something like really cool. Like I don't know when, but eventually I want to try to get into like Dragon Con down in Atlanta. You know, do something big like those where the big authors really are. But
Even once in a lifetime, you know.
yeah, exactly. Just do it one time. Like something like
Yeah.
that. So um, that's probably not going to happen this year. I got too much else going on, and just with my personal life. But
Fair.
and then after Faded comes out and pushing that, I'm actually going to switch gears um, in my books. And the next book, I'm not sure. I got two ideas, but it's going to be an anti-hero type of book, kind of like Daredevil or Punisher. Or
Okay.
I got
Okay.
two. I got
You got a
two
couple
kind of
ideas. Yeah.
ideas on those. They'll both get written eventually. I'm just not sure which one's going to go first.
Fair enough. Okay.
But just try that. Just try that superhero genre for a little bit.
Nice.
So
Yeah. Just
that'll
to do
be.
something different. Keep it fresh.
Yep, yep. Just I'll probably keep writing the short stories and stuff, but yeah, just try something different. Cause like if I hadn't tried the horror stuff, the short stories, I would have tried to probably stayed away from it. And I really kind of fell into it and I enjoy it. So I'll try these too.
You got your first published story from that genre, right? So there you go, so good for you. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. I think it's amazing when you can talk to authors who are doing it and getting tips from it. So, I mean, I wish sharing that.
I wish the first time when I was doing eyes, I wish I had a little bit more of the knowledge and not had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah. I'm like 30 episodes into the podcast, and I've had a lot of guests who kind of were the mavericks. They did it themselves, so like yourself, right? The first one was the hardest, and you learn so much. Well, I'm lucky in that in doing the podcast, I'm learning some of the things of what not to do as much as what to do. So,
and sometimes that's more important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate you for that. And maybe a little further down the road, we can meet again and chat about some more stuff. I'm sure there's some more exciting stuff in the future.
Oh, I'm sure.
All right, Scott. Thanks very much, man. We'll talk later.
All right, thanks.